So let's do some quick recap of Dan Cormier. I'm just going to leave that there. If you see me glancing, that's what I'm doing. Daniel Cormier, UFC 226. Do a little recap. UFC 226 Saturday night. See, I said that because that's where you'll cut it, right, Mark? I'm going to start thinking in terms of chunks so Mark can chunk it all up. I hate to use the word obviously. I almost used it there, but because even things that seem obvious, they're not. When you say that, sometimes you're disrespecting people who didn't see it that way. We all see things differently. But Daniel Cormier went and became the heavyweight champion of the world when he was already the light heavyweight champion of the world. He did it beautifully. And we'll talk about that, the detail of how he did it in a moment. But first, there's a human element to this. These are humans. We say that all the time. That's just a guy, just some guy. He's like, do you know his daughter's name? I've seen it written. I forget it. We met her. He introduced me to his son and his daughter. Man, they were good kids. I met his wife and his family. And you see that guy, and he's somebody's husband. He's two kids, a boy and a girl's father. He's people's friend. He's just a guy. He's just a person. He's not better than you. He's better at fighting than you. But and he's pretty damn good at a lot of things. But he was just a guy who worked really hard from the time he was a kid. And all things are possible with hard work. All things are possible with dedication and focus and desire. And I mean, you look at that guy who won it, and I was working at TSN doing something for SportsCenter. We were standing by to do a piece on SportsCenter after. And people in the newsroom, they weren't being rude. They weren't being, body shamey or whatever. They were just joking around that guy was fat. Hey, look, he's fat. And they don't mean in the world. They mean for a elite professional athlete. Well, that fat guy is the champion of the world, heavyweight champion of the world today. Just a regular guy, worked really hard. So the human element, you couldn't help. Not everybody, we're all different, but a lot of us really were happy for that guy. So what happened in that fight? Well, I didn't see him talking about it before, but I've heard many people tell me, and I believe that it's true, is that he was saying before that Stipe kept his hands down as he exited clinches. Again, I didn't see footage of him saying that, but I'm told he said that, and I believe that's what he said. You tell me. Whether he said it or not, that's the action he took. That's what he responded to. Excuse me, I'm just wrecking my own computer down here. That is the response that he took. That's the opening that he was prepared for. So you're dealing with somebody with long reach, much longer than yours. That's 6'8" inches. He's fought guys with more than that. John Jones' reach compared to his reach. So what do? Right? You understand that if I'm the taller man, and you're the shorter man, where I can touch you, you cannot touch me. Right? So Stipe or Jones or Gustafsson or anybody with more reach can hit him in places where he cannot hit them. So what do you normally do? You normally slip your head to one side, draw punches, and here's his head, and through whichever direction. Often guys like to slip this way. Punch comes by, you come underneath, and now you're closer. You're closer. You can hit me now. So he needs to get closer. When put quite simply, the guy on the outside, the taller guy, can hit, so you need to get inside of that reach. Done generally or often, especially in striking sports, by moving your head and feet to get closer to land. So that range inside, further out than holding, not as far out as all the way out. Some call it the pocket. There are many names for it. That little range in there can be accessed in a different way. Quite simply, from holding to on the way out, you're in that range again. You pass from holding each other. There was a term I heard somebody use, but anyways, clinch, chest to chest, grappling, no range, call it what you want. You're here. Out here, the long guy can, but as you pass through the range where you have the advantage. The shorter man has the advantage in that inside range. Truthfully, we always hear the longer man, the person with the longer reach, has the advantage from the outside, and we know this to be true. What we often don't hear is that the taller, longer man has the advantage all the way inside as well. When John Jones is holding you here, he has all kinds of leverage advantages by being the taller man. It's only in that inside space halfway between all the way in and all the way out, that pocket, that's where you land. And again, often you get there by moving your way in, but you can also get there on the way out. And I know I took a long time to explain it, and I explained it in many different ways. And I know that frustrates some people, but I do it because when I learn, hearing it a second time and a third time, and phrased slightly different and drawn and pictured, I understand it differently. And that's why I do that. One of the reasons. And I'm trying to understand it differently myself. Imagine for 25 years, you just watch jabs or talk about jabs. If all you ever say is, oh, you got to establish your jab, whatever you say, establish your jab, fight from the outside. If you've only got 4 or 5 ways to phrase it, you've probably only got 4 or 5 ways to think about it. And as somebody who will study this for 20 and 30 and 40 more years, I need many different ways to speak about it and say it and see it and think it. And that's how you get to a deeper level of understanding. But despite what I just said there, this is a very simple idea. And it was beautiful. He understood that hands might be low on his way from the clinch back to the outside. And he understood the distance at which to strike from. And he turned his hip and he floored that man. And in that moment, his whole life changed forever. And that, to me, is one of the beauties of the fight game. It was just one punch. Just one punch. His whole life is different now. Think of that. That matters when we're watching the fights and we are looking for meaning at times. We're looking for meaning of what they're experiencing and meaning for what they may do after and meaning of where it leads and their life and their career and legacy and injury and all these things. That punch changed his life forever because he made a lot of money. He's the heavyweight champion, and no one will ever take that away. The meaning of heavyweight champion or champion in general can change and will change over time. But the fact that Daniel Cormier in 2018 was the light heavyweight champion and the heavyweight champion simultaneously or concurrently, is that the same word? Simultaneously. Yeah. What does concurrently mean? Because I've heard that when I watch those jail shows. And then you get sentenced to 2 life sentences to be served concurrently. And it's like, that sounds terrible. It's like simultaneously. That's what I thought. Because I was like, well, you can't give me 2 in a row. I only have 1 life. So anyways, that's all nonsense. But so his life changed forever. So you're looking at this. Then he's won. And you're looking at this kid, big kid, Dan, as great a fighter and leader and father and all these things he is. He's a kid. He's a big kid. And all of a sudden, he's playing with Brock Lesnar. And it's in his mind. He's like, holy shit, I'm the heavyweight champion of the world. And I get to be involved in this thing with Brock Lesnar. He's going to get richer significantly. This isn't like, I saw somewhere that he might have been paid $350 and $350 or $500 and $500. Stipe was $750 and $750.
I think he got 500 flat.
500 flat. Okay. Well, the Brock Lesnar one's going to probably make him $3 million. You know, you get pay-per-view points. Could be more. Pay-per-view points against Stipe Miocic, maybe something. A lot of money to me and a lot of us. But Brock Lesnar pay-per-view points, that's like life-changing shit. And what if you beat him? Regardless, you know, you're there shooting to beat him. Incredibly experienced against the best guys in the world. Brock Lesnar has 9 MMA fights. I have 9 MMA fights. You know what I mean?
It's not just the draw of the general interest, it's the WWE crowd. The WWE crowd and the mainstream crowd. I mean, over at TSM, we talk about, and it was cool. I got to actually physically act out that, explanation. I had people stop me on the street this week saying, hey, I saw it in SportsCenter. That was really cool with the range thing. And I know you guys are very educated in fighting, but a person is just watching the Canadian Football League and they see somebody explain going from clinch to outside. To them, that's a breakthrough. It's like somebody showing me a handoff. I'm like, let me get this straight. They took the football and they handed it to the other guy. That's crazy shit. That's about my level of understanding. For a lot of people that don't watch fighting as much as we do, showing them that passing through the danger range for Cormier was interesting stuff. But so, some people were watching that by a world-class standards, but Brock Lesnar, this is mainstream big. And the sports guys, and TSN is a sports channel, all sports.
It's the best channel in Canadian history. I'm proud to work there. So proud to work there. I talk about it all the time. It's the one that like my mom and dad are like, wow, he works at TSN, you know. Like, you know, Mark's friends and family who are like, oh yeah, Mark does something with this guy, and they're like, oh, I saw him on TSN. Like, that's the one that makes the difference to the mainstream people. Well, in that office of sports fans, they're like, well, you know, this doesn't really cut through to like mainstream big, but Brock Lesnar does. And so it does. So that's going to change Dan's life. So good for him. I mean, there are lots of other fights in there. I'm doing my one-man show at Fringe, so we're heading off to do that. So we won't talk about all these fights. My apologies. Please go back. If you're on the channel, just click my channel, click videos, and you can go back and watch my take on Francis Ngannou and Derek Lewis. You know, instead of a couple layers deeper, how and why. Why did that fight look like that? What was happening? What was it? What was it really? Please check that out if you haven't, and tell us what you think. Paul Felder and, you know, Mike Perry. Mike Perry got a lot improved. Like, yeah, so he's training with Greg and probably, you know, Six Gun Gibson and Coach Winklejohn and maybe just doing the pro classes. He didn't have pros to work with. It's made him so much better. It also really, and they're smart, man. But I actually did some Mike Tyson breakdowns recently. And there is a particular way that Cus D'Amato trained Mike Tyson, where they built around his powerful hips, and they built him in a way that really played to his attributes. And a different coach and a different approach, and he wouldn't have been Mike Tyson. You know, it's a conversation we have a lot, but, you know, people will argue, oh, power is God-given. Really? Because I've seen guys who ended up, Francis Ngannou walked into the gym, he didn't know how to throw a punch. He didn't have any power. I mean, his clubbing stuff was hard, but until you learn how to use your physical attributes, you don't have power. It's a combination of attributes and skill and technical expression. So they built Mike Tyson like that. And in the short time that Mike Perry's been at Jackson Winklejohn, they've built him around those attributes. That lunging left hook, you don't teach that because physically, I mean, there are guys there. Actually, I've seen Cub Swanson throw that punch, and he is very hip springy and very loose and relaxed, but not a lot of athletes are going to be able to throw that in that way. And then you need the mental commitment to throw that punch. You need so much, and a lot of it is attribute based. You know, Michael Chandler, Cub Swanson, you need to take great physical attribute fighters and then add the skills or build them together, and that's the best, you know, wind them together. So I was blown away by him. He's just a kid. Mark just said he's 26. Yeah, he's just a kid. So 3 losses in a row, you know, people start to, you know, think, oh, we got a guy figured out. Maybe that's true. So let's change him. So whatever you have figured out is not what he is. And then Felder showed a lot of guts and heart. Felder is the more skilled overall if we just do skill tests. You know, who can do things better and smoother and sharper and whatever. That's Paul Felder. Yes, he got injured, and so that he got to show a lot of things he hasn't got to show before. You know, he's very smart, and he's very technically good, and he's tough, but he got to show courage and heart, and most of us cannot do anything with a broken arm. I was going to say fight with a broken arm. We can't do anything. Break your arm and then go get some groceries or something. Like, not even with the arm, just like with your arm like this, and go do anything. You can't, right? These are special humans, and that's why we celebrate this so much. There were other brilliant fights, but, you know, we're not going to talk about the past as much as the future today.